Hello BookTube, my name is Daniel, welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet, I've got no rhythm. Fart gun returns. No reason, none of the books I'm going to talk about today are fart worthy, but I'm on my own, working from home, in the apartment, and when I'm on my own, in the middle of the day, in the apartment, the fart gun comes out. I want to talk today about some essay collections, some which maybe have been spoken about before, some which may be new to you, but I think all of them worth your attention. I've got my reading glasses on. I have my There's No Such Thing as Too Many Books t-shirt on, because I'm going to do some, I thought I might do some reading from some of these essay collections to try and sell them to you. But before I start talking about books, I thought I'd just quickly mention a podcast, the Slate Culture Gabfest. I'll leave a link to it below, but the Slate Culture Gabfest is presented by three people who've been working together for many years. I've kind of stopped listening in the last few months, and I'm going to get back into it because they're always good value. But the three presenters are a guy, all work for Slate. Slate is an online magazine, mostly behind a paywall, but they've got a bunch of podcasts as well, some about culture, some about other things, politics and sports, etc. But the Culture Gabfest is hosted by Stephen Metcalf, a very brilliant man, Dana Stevens, who is Slate's film critic, and Julia Turner, used to be editor-in-chief at Slate, but is now, I think, deputy managing editor at the LA Times. They're all intellects of the highest caliber, and they talk very highbrow ways about lowbrow culture, but not highbrow in a way that is inaccessible. They're just very smart people with a wide range of references and always entertaining. For example, a recent episode of theirs, they spoke about The Father, which was the movie for which Anthony Hopkins just won an Oscar, The Real World Homecoming, which I have no idea what it is, except I assume it's a rehash of MTV's The Real World, and Philip Roth. So all in the same podcast. They talk about things, they make recommendations. One of so the first book that I'm going to talk about is a recommendation that I got from those guys at the Slate Culture Gabfest, and it is The Boys of My Youth by Joanne Beard. This collection came out in about 1999 and is most famous for an essay called The Fourth State of Matter, which was originally published in the New Yorker over 2 weeks in 1996. The essay collection is remarkable. The Fourth State of Matter, and I will link to, you can read the whole essay, The Fourth State of Matter, and I don't want to spoil any of it for you. It's maybe is spoiling if I say that it's true crime. It's I think comparable with Capote's In Cold Blood as one of the most remarkable pieces of narration of a horrifying event. I think that's probably what it's most famous for, but in itself it is a fine piece of writing, and the rest of the essay collection about Joanne Beard's growing up and the boys of her youth and other aspects of youth is also fabulous. She wrote, as I say, this was published in 1999. I think there's a novel that's come out since then, which I haven't read, but there is a new essay collection due this August by Joanne Beard, so that's 22 years later. I'm going to read a little bit from The Fourth State of Matter, but just when I think of it, I think of the horrific events that it describes, but it's also worth remembering just how great the story is. So our narrator is Joanne Beard, and she talks about a day off work where she's home tending to her dog who is unwell. I have an ex-beauty queen coming over to get rid of the squirrels for me. She has long red hair and a smile that can stop trucks. I've seen her wrestle goats, scare off a giant snake, and express a dog's anal glands all in one afternoon. I told her on the phone that a family of squirrels is living in the upstairs of my house, and there's nothing I can do about it. They're making a monkey out of me, I said. So Caroline climbs in her car, drives across half the state, pulls up in front of my house, and gets out carrying zucchinis, cigarettes, and a pair of big leather gloves. I'm sitting outside with my sweet old dog, who lurches to her feet, staggers 3 steps, sits down, and falls over. Caroline starts crying. There is a terseness here, a precision of the prose in this sort of banal story that she's telling, which is then juxtaposed against some of the most powerful and tersely told prose. It's just terrific. If you read essay collections, if you have any love of short form nonfiction, this gets my highest recommendation, The Boys of My Youth by Joe Ann Beard. Next up is another author that I came to through the Slate Culture Gap Fest, and I've spoken about the book that they recommended, which is The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down by Anne Fadiman, which is was described by them, and I'm stealing their phrase, as the greatest work of narrative nonfiction that they can think of. And I read that based, I think, mostly on Stephen Metcalf's recommendation. And from then I've gone on to read everything else by Anne Fadiman. I think that I've learned about Anne Fadiman is that her father was a man called Clifton Fadiman, who was a famous public intellectual of his day in the 50s, I think, and famous in as much as he was on TV and answering questions, but I've never read anything by him. He was a literary critic and an all-round critic, and by all accounts, a very brilliant man. Anne Fadiman is his daughter. I haven't read Clifton Fadiman. I've only read Anne Fadiman, and she is one of the most brilliant writers and most entertaining writers of non-fiction. The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down is a very somber work, sad but not depressing. Others, essay collections, including this one, which is called Ex Libris, Confessions of Common Reader, is just joyous, and if you have any love of reading and of words, then you will enjoy it. My copy's like, oh, look how faded it's got. That's the sun. I don't think it came to me like that, so this is all sun damage from being with me. She is a woman, an essayist, obsessed with words and language and reading, and an erudite human being of the highest order, as was her whole family. So one of the essays here is called Insert a Carrot, and you can see there it's got typographical marks where it's been corrected from Insert a Carrot. Anyway, this is a story about her family which may ring true to some of you. During a recent visit to the Florida island where our parents lived, my brother and I had dinner with them at a fancy restaurant. As we bent our heads over the menu, all of us, that is except my father who can't see, I realised that our identically wrapped expressions had nothing to do with deciding what we wanted to eat. "They've transposed the E and the I in Madeira sauce," commented my brother. "They've made bel paese into one word," I said, "and it's lowercase." "At least they spell better than the place where we had dinner last Tuesday," said my mother. They served P-E-A-K-I-N-G duck. If you are the kind of person who looks for typos in restaurant menus uncontrollably, then I think you get a big kick out of it. That's one essay, but the rest of them are equally juicy and wonderful. And an interesting fact that I learned from Wikipedia when she was interviewed in 2008, Anne Fadiman revealed that her dog was called Typo, which I kind of love. Okie dokie. Next up, we have... Apologies in advance if this is triggering in any way for you, but I have a collection here called A Supposedly Fun Thing, I'll Never Do Again by David Foster Wallace. Supposedly Fun is the name of Greg's channel, and when I first came to YouTube and saw that he was called Supposedly Fun, I thought, that's where he gets it from. And I've seen a video where he admitted that is where he gets it from, but that he's never read this collection or any David Foster Wallace. But yeah, okay. So A Supposedly Fun Thing, I'll Never Do Again is the first David Foster Wallace I read. It is a collection of non-fiction essays. If you have read and loved or hated Infinite Jest, or you just have opinions about who David Foster Wallace is or was, and what he represented and what kind of human being he was, you may not be predisposed to reading this. This was the first Foster Wallace that I read. I think it's better than Infinite Jest. I think I've read other essay collections, and I've read at least one other work of fiction of his. I think his non-fiction is infinitely superior to his fiction, and I liked Infinite Jest, but there's a lot of it, flashes of brilliance, and a lot of other stuff in between. Another flash of brilliance, 400 pages and several hundred footnotes later on. These are essays, most of which he was commissioned to write as a sort of, what do they call them? Writers in something. Anyway, commissioned by Harper's Magazine. And the title essay, A Supposedly Fun Thing, I'll Never Do Again, is about a 7-day Caribbean cruise that he takes. Also in this collection are his famous essay, E Unibus Plurum Television and the US Fiction, which is back from, when is this published? This collection is from early 2000s, no, late 98. So the E Pluribus Unum is from was in the Review of Contemporary Fiction in 1993. Supposedly Fun Thing was I can't even tell. I can't see from where these essays were. Anyway, and then there's another essay in here which wasn't originally titled this, called Getting Away from Already Being Pretty Much Away from It All is the title in this book. Too many words. Getting Away from Already Being Pretty Much Away from It All. I think when it was originally published in Harper's or wherever, it was something different, and that's about his visit to the Illinois State Fair in 1993, and reading it, I learned more about corn dogs than I had ever wished to know. What you find reading these essays is he's very funny. I get that his humour may not appeal to everybody, and I get there may be other aspects of David Foster Wallace which don't appeal to everybody, but he is witty and funny. Probably spent most of his life being the smartest person in the room, which I think does something to a person, but I'm kind of there for it. I understand that ticks people off. I've got a bit from the title essay, A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again, which, as I say, is about this. Harper's paid for him to go on this cruise so that he could commission this essay that he would write without any idea of what he would write, but they just thought, David Foster Wallace on a Caribbean cruise, that's going to be a value for money. And right at the beginning, he talks about some of the things that he's seen as the result of this cruise. I've seen the north coast of Jamaica. I've seen and smelled all 145 cats inside the Ernest Hemingway residence in Key West, Florida. I now know the difference between straight bingo and prizo, and what it is when a bingo jackpot snowballs. I have seen camcorders that practically required a dolly. I've seen fluorescent luggage and fluorescent sunglasses and fluorescent pince-nez, and over 20 different makes of rubber thong. I've heard steel drums and eaten conch fritters and watched a woman in silver lame projectile vomit inside a glass elevator. I have pointed rhythmically at the ceiling to the 2/4 beat of the exact same disco music I hated pointing at the ceiling to in 1977. Now, if you don't enjoy that, you're not going to enjoy much that Dave Foster Wallace has to offer, but if you like the idea of a woman in silver lame projectile vomiting inside a glass elevator, if that's the kind of thing, or the observation of that makes you giggle or snicker, then you may find plenty to enjoy here. He's funny, he's smart, and this is A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again by David Foster Wallace that is one of the best essay collections I've ever read. But I think having gone to David Foster Wallace, we need to counterbalance that a little bit. And what I've got for you next is Rebecca Solnit's Men Explain Things to Me. I don't think there is anything I should say that would explain this to anybody. Solnit, while she didn't invent the term mansplaining, has the essay called Men Explain Things to Me, which is the definitive essay on the subject, and I found the entire thing online, and I will link to it below. I'm not going to try and explain anything in this to you, even though my entire channel is based on this person mansplaining things to whoever is watching. But I will say that I bought this and read this in hardback, and sort of mansplained to my kids what this was about, and a little bit about the lead essay called Men Explain Things to Me. And I just, in order to make this video, I had to retrieve this from my daughter's room where it's been sitting, read ever since, and claimed as her own, which I guess is a good thing. Not that this is a book that needs to be read by women, it needs to be read by more men than women, but I like the fact that this has become one of her key texts. Anyway, Men Explain Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit, linked to the essay Men Explains It to Me below. There are other essays in here, they're all good, she's brilliant, worth reading. And then I guess coming back, slightly again, if the pendulum is swinging, I'm going to finish with a last collection of essays by another white bloke who not super popular in this community, and that's Jonathan Franzen. I have here his collection Farther Away, which is I've read two other essay. I've read the 3 big novels, not his early stuff, but Corrections and Purity and the other one. And I've read some up there on the shelf. I can't remember what the Freedom. Corrections, Freedom and Purity, and he's got a new one coming out, and this is the 3rd of his essay collections. They're all great. So the first one is How to Be Alone, and then I've got The Discomfort Zone, and then Farther Away. I read this, I bought this and had it sitting on my shelf for a while, and then read this last year, picked it up during lockdown when I had no new books coming in, because I was kind of done with, I kind of get the point. But actually this is a little quieter, a little less flashy than his earlier collections. I think, I hesitate to use the word mature, but these are essays of a person written, a person a little bit older writing, and I'm there for that. Having read the early stuff and seen the change, this I think had a greater impact on me. There are essays here about ornithology, about Franzen travelling the world in order to watch birds, which is kind of touching. Even you have in your mind all the time that some it's a little performative, but there is an air of melancholy about these essays which I found very touching, and I think at the heart of all of them, and specifically at the heart of this book, is a melancholy over his lost friend David Foster Wallace, friend, competitor, friend, and the right in the middle of this is his words from David Foster Wallace's memorial service, and I'll just share the ending of that essay. And again, take it what you will. If you've got no time in your life for David Foster Wallace, if you've got no time in your life for Jonathan Franzen, that's fine. I think these essay collections are worth looking at. David Foster Wallace, since his taking his own life, has become even more immortalised, and he's always known as David Foster Wallace, or even shorthand DFW. And in Franzen's essay, he refers to him often as Dave, and calls him his friend Dave Wallace, which just, I think on its own, again, while it has a sort of ring of that it is somehow performative, it is also, I think, very touching and humanising, and I think, as I say, there's a reason it's at the heart, right in the middle of this essay collection, and this is how it closes. David Foster Wallace, towards the end of his life, before I read this, I wanted to say that one of the things that we forget, and we hear all the stories about David Foster Wallace, and I credit every story that has ever been told about him, and reasons why people see no reason to read him. Worth remembering also that he was a man who struggled vast majority of his life with mental health issues, and arranging medication, and the ups and downs and the roller coaster of managing one's medication in dealing with ongoing mental health issues. And I think that's something that Franzen, I'm sorry for my phone pinging, I think that's something that Franzen is keen to turn it off. I haven't managed to turn it off. Okay, it's something that Franzen picks up on and mentions, as I say, in the closing of this essay from Foster Wallace's memorial. Talking about the last time, one of the last times they spoke, I said he was a stubborn control freak and know-it-all. So are you, he shot back at me. And I said that people like us are afraid to relinquish control, that sometimes the only way we can force ourselves to open up and change is to bring ourselves to an access of misery and the brink of self-destruction. I said he had undertaken his change of medication because he wanted to grow up and have a better life. I said I thought his best writing was ahead of him, and he said, I like that story. Could you do me a favour and call me up every 4 or 5 days and tell me another story like it? Unfortunately, I only had one more chance to tell him the story, and by then he wasn't hearing it. He was in horrible, minute-by-minute anxiety and pain. The next times I tried to call him after that, he wasn't picking up the phone or returning messages. He'd gone down into the well of infinite sadness, beyond the reach of story, and he didn't make it out. But he had a beautiful, yearning innocence, and he was trying. I think that's as fine a memorial to a human being that you could wish for, a beautiful, yearning innocence, and he was trying. It's a nice essay collection and worth reading. So I think the pendulum swung back and forth, 5 collections, spoken almost 20 minutes with my phone pinging. Worth reading all of them. If you if you like that, try these out. I'll put links to the essays. I'll put some links down below if you want to check some of them out. Thanks very much. Have a good day. Bye.